A lot of people like it, Mercedes Schlapp, when Donald Trump goes after the media. He knows that. And at the same time, some are wondering whether we apply the same standards to other candidates.
Absolutely not. I mean, I think we've clearly seen the coverage, especially like the New York Times and how they cover President Obama. There was an article just last week where they were talking about his, a soft piece on him, talking about his reality show experience on climate change. I mean, clearly, when you look at the mainstream media, there is a certain bias in terms of how they're treating a Donald Trump. While the media is very obsessed with Donald Trump, they're treating him very differently than they're doing Hillary.
I've got somebody who agrees with you. Got an email from Dave W. who writes the following: Trump is right to go after the media. They constantly attack him and conservatives. Then the media constantly slobber over Clinton and Obama. Well, you can make the case about President Obama. Certainly, I've said that in 2007 and 2008, I've never seen anyone get the kind of positive coverage in a presidential campaign that he did. Hillary Clinton slobbering over. We did go through 6 months of
get hit hard on
stories about emails
Sure.
and Clinton Foundation and
Sure.
possible conflicts. So, but there's certainly a perception out there that Hillary Clinton, who right now is kind of walking her way,
Sure.
waltzing her way to the nomination, is treated differently than, let's say, Donald Trump.
Right. And clearly, again, it has to deal with media exposure to a certain degree. Trump is getting, over time, media exposure all the time. Hillary Clinton, what's her approach? She's stepping back, not doing a lot of media interviews, although she said she was going to be doing more media interviews.
Well, she did more than she had before, because before she was doing zero.
Exactly. But Howie, more than she does before is what? 1 or 2? I mean, come on. And then she goes on Saturday Night Live and hits the late night shows. I mean, that's her approach to the media right now. She doesn't want to answer the tough questions. And guess who is answering the tough questions? Trump and several of the other GOP candidates, like a Cruz, like a Rubio, like a Jeb.
It was interesting in that interview that I did with Trump at Trump Tower. I asked him, why do you keep saying Hillary Clinton doesn't have the stamina to be president? And he framed it in terms of, well, she'll talk to Ed Henry or other reporters for 10 minutes, and then you don't see her for a few days. In other words, she's not doing enough interviews. But last point, Mercy, the media, according to Dave W., constantly attack him and conservatives. But it's conservative commentators that are going after Donald Trump. It kind of scrambles the usual left-right divisions we see in coverage of politics.
Well, what I do believe is that the mainstream media, there is always a sense from the conservative movement that, yes, they are being attacked from the liberal media. No question. In anything that we're dealing with in terms of social issues, economic issues, clearly they feel that the conservatives do not align themselves with what the media morality litmus test is, moral litmus test is. So I think that that's a big issue for conservatives, and they have felt under attack by the media. So I think that's a
I don't dispute that at all, but I would just close on the point that conservative commentators and columnists, I think, have gone after Donald Trump with even more passion than liberal pundits, because some of them, many of them, not all of them, but many of them, because they feel he's a threat to conservatism. Donald Trump not shy about punching back. One of the interesting things I find, maybe you find, Mercy, when you're on Media Buzz, is the way in which people, and it's great for them to disagree. I love getting letters saying you blew it. But sometimes they hear what they want to hear. And so my interview with Donald Trump, as I've mentioned, brought a lot of reaction on the Twitter and the Facebook, and also by email. So we got a note from Henry N. Did I hear Howie say to Trump that he was almost obsessive? Pot call kettle black. Those covering the news are the obsessed ones. I am impressed by Trump because he inserts himself into the news cycle so ably. So just a slight clarification. What I said was, you seem to obsessively attack journalists. I didn't say he shouldn't, but that was the point about the obsession.
Well, you still use the word obsessive in there,
did.
Howie.
I'm guilty. Yes.
But again, I think that there is a sense from the media that we are all a little bit obsessed with covering Donald Trump because he is such a phenomenon in the political process, right? So in the way he is able to be so accessible to the news, to journalists, the fact that he's willing to do 2 morning shows and then your interview with him on Media Buzz, it's saturation. And you would think that people would be fatigued by it. We keep finding it entertaining. It's the reason why his reality show was so successful for so long.
Well, to the extent that journalists are obsessed with Donald Trump, and I'm not completely disputing the premise of this letter, obvious, he's good for ratings. So if he was terrible for ratings, probably wouldn't be on TV so much. Also, though, he is the Republican frontrunner by a lot. I mean, you look at these national polls, and I know those are not state-by-state polls. He's at 39. Cruz is 20 points back. And except for Iowa, he's ahead by a healthy margin in the early states. And he's willing to put himself out there and sit down with people like me and Chris Wallace and Chuck Todd and John Dickerson and others and Morning Joe and answer any tough question we have. That's a great thing if you're a journalist. I think it's a great thing for the country.
And if you're a politician, you should take some notes from Donald Trump.
You're saying that some of the other candidates might get out there a little bit more and do more interviews?
Absolutely. I think that candidates need to, this is a new reality when it comes to media in a campaign. And I think that it's less about the spokespeople, less about the media shop, and more about the candidate being accessible, more about the candidate being aggressive on social media and being available to journalists to ask the tough questions and them give the answers. And hopefully they can try to drive the news cycle like Donald Trump does every day.
Well, in that last CNN debate in Las Vegas, Mercedes Schlapp, Jeb Bush tried to hit back a couple of times at Donald Trump, and then Donald Trump, of course, had the line about, I'm at 42, you're at 3, you're a tough guy. Got an email from Rick DeFries in Las Vegas, which was, of course, the site of the debate, and he writes, nobody has yet commented on Jeb's debate performance. Jeb is constantly insulting Donald Trump, calling him unhinged and a jerk. Then he says you can't insult your way to the presidency. Tell Jeb to look in the mirror when he says that. It was a few days after the debate that Jeb said he was giving himself therapy by saying Donald Trump is a jerk.
I don't blame him. He should. So I think in Jeb's case, when they say insult your, when Jeb did say insult your way to the presidency, he was talking more so about Trump's comments about Hispanics and women, Muslims, for example. And so I think for Jeb, his strategy right now, he has been attacked so many times by Donald Trump. What are you going to do? You're going to be the kid in the playground that's not going to respond back? I mean, you got to fight back. It might be the nerd versus a bully fight, but it's got to happen. And I think that Jeb Bush has to stand up to Donald Trump if Donald Trump is going to go after him.
So unlike our letter writer, you don't see a contradiction between Jeb
not at all
complaining about Trump's insults and then calling him a jerk, which is a strong language.
Right, but I mean, the GOP candidates, look, they're going to duke this thing out, right? They're going to, if Trump goes after them, Jeb's going to, he has to respond. Even if it is, look, he's calling him a jerk. But when he said insult your,
he was the only one on that debate stage who went after Donald.
Right, and everyone's staying very timid, but when it was very clear, and when you read the transcript, it says insult your way to the presidency, and then he followed it by insulting women, Hispanics, and going down the list of things, as we know, that Donald Trump has made certain comments that have been incredibly controversial.
All right, last point about Jeb's media skills. He goes on CBS's Face the Nation and he says, I hated being called the front runner when I got into the race. I like being where I am now. Where he is now is 3, 4, 5, 6%. So did that not quite come out right?
Yes, I think that he was trying to say that he likes to be the underdog, but I think it would have been better if he would have used that word, but I think anyone would agree that right now, at this point, getting close to Iowa, you want to be the front runner.
If Jeb Bush likes being the underdog, this campaign is tailor-made for him, because right now, he's a bit of an underdog. Hillary Clinton has all the major media organizations saying she did not tell the truth, and it's a problem of her own making. It's happened at the Saturday night debate on ABC. Maybe you missed it, like most of the country, since the DNC and the networks keep burying these debates on Saturday nights. She had a good debate. Bernie Sanders even apologized to her over that data breach, mini digital Watergate thing. But then in taking on Donald Trump, and clearly Hillary Clinton is already running against Donald Trump, she's not even bothering very much with her two Democratic rivals, the former Secretary of State said this: he's becoming ISIS's best recruiter. They're going to people showing videos of Donald Trump insulting Islam and Muslims in order to recruit more radical jihadists. Well, if Hillary Clinton had only said he's becoming ISIS's best recruiter, that clearly is a fair political comment. A lot of people have criticized the Republican frontrunner for his proposed temporary ban on most Muslims coming into the U.S., saying that this helps ISIS. But then she goes a step further. Here she is having a problem with the video again, right? It's reminiscent of the days after Benghazi. The terrorists, are going to people showing videos of Donald Trump. There is no evidence of that. It could conceivably happen in the future. It hasn't happened yet. So all that the former secretary had to do was to say, well, I slightly misspoke, and what I meant to say was, this is a great victory for ISIS, and that they could be, or would be, or should be showing videos of Donald Trump. But instead, she's got Trump going on the Today Show, calling her a liar, demanding an apology. And here's the interesting part. Her spokesman says, hell no, no apology. They know that she didn't choose the right words, that she misspoke. They want to keep this issue going. They're willing to take the media attacks and the questions about her veracity in order to get more ink and airtime for an issue they think works for them. Now, who does that remind you of? Yeah, Donald Trump often says things that the media fact checkers pound him on, that they can't quite catch up with, can't document. For example, Trump saying that he saw TV footage on 9/11 of thousands and thousands of Muslims in New Jersey celebrating. There have since been reports of a couple dozen celebrating here or there. Nobody's ever denied that there weren't pockets of celebration. So this leads me to the ultimate point here, which is in this campaign, whether it's Trump, Hillary, or a number of other candidates, they are willing to exaggerate a bit, stretch the truth, or at least make factually unsupported claims, blowing off the notion that media critics and commentators and fact checkers and truth squatters are going to try to hold them accountable, because they know the media have low credibility, and they also know that they have a much bigger megaphone than the Washington Post awarding a number of Pinocchios or PolitiFact, which, by the way, said Trump was the liar of the year, and Trump went back and blasted PolitiFact. There's only one thing that is interfering with Hillary Clinton really taking it on the chin over her claim in this debate, and that is Donald Trump going to a rally and saying she got schlonged in the 2008 campaign by Barack Obama. I've never heard it used as a verb before either, folks, and it's not something I would say. I guess we're on video here. But if a presidential candidate says it, we have to deal with it. And that has now diverted attention.